Directing traffic, gonna go deep, has a man deep, it is caught for the touchdown, Corey Davis!
What does he do? Attacks leverage. If he's outside leverage, he doesn't want you to beat him outside. So stem towards him, hold him outside, stamp outside. Drive face, full cell vertical, get into the blind spot, and he absolutely burns him. Corner is lost. He literally has no idea where Wilson is.
Long, fast, how he approaches the game, how dedicated he is to football. He's ridiculously good, man. You have to be ecstatic.
This is actual film. This is actual football talk. It's a football show. We're supposed to talk football, not storylines.
And you are watching / listening to another edition of Blitz with a very outdated intro at this point. It's always kind of weird to start these things, but what is up, people? Not too much news to discuss today. So it's going to be pretty heavily chat driven. Maybe I'll get off at 7:30 today. Maybe I'll only do an hour and a half, but I severely doubt that because we're going to end up getting to some stuff. But we'll get into some visits first from some tackles to other spots we might be interested in, some OBJ stuff, some Al Wood stuff, some potential free agent, free safety targets who might have signed with other teams. Some news about Breece Hall, some backup quarterbacks getting signed. As you guys can tell with the picture for the stream, Tim Boyle was signed by the Jets. Backup quarterback, 28 years old, was with the Packers, I believe, in 2019 and 2020. Was with the Chicago Bears in 21 and 22. So he has familiarity with Hackett's system. And when they come into OTAs, voluntary OTAs, or wherever they are on April 17th or 18th, they have a quarterback to run the system. Does he make it all the way through camp and actually be the backup? I don't know. I was hoping for a backup level type, like a Chase Daniel level guy, Teddy Bridgewater being like the dream or somebody else. I'm not sure how much of an upgrade Tim Boyle is over Zach Wilson, if at all, but for the time being, he knows the offense. So that's happened. Our savior, the quarterback we wanted from Green Bay finally got here in Tim Boyle, who I believe came in one game for the Lions, 1 or 2 games last year, and he threw like 2 picks and a couple of throws, so not necessarily the best. But let's get into the chat, say hello to some people. I know Dakota popped in here really, really early and said hello. That disappeared, but Dakota, appreciate you regardless. John Sanders, what's up? Anthony G, finally, jet to F up, boys. Tim F and Boyle. Yeah, it's a little bit underwhelming from a backup quarterback standpoint, but yeah, doesn't even make it. Again, I prefer a guy who is a little bit more proven than Tim Boyle. I'm not sure if he's an upgrade, if at all, to Zach Wilson at this point. So I'd rather have a guy who's more proven, but maybe he's just a camp body and Zach Wilson really is the number 2 going into the season. I'll never agree with that. And I get that some people are going to take it to the extremes and say, oh, well, if Aaron Rodgers goes down for any substantial amount of time, we're screwed anyway. Of course, but what if he goes down for 2 quarters, and you need to win that game? We might be screwing ourselves in that instance. If you can get a Chase Daniel, you can at least run an NFL offense efficiently, or at least to somewhat efficient level. So Anthony G, can't wait for the 2-hour film. And by the way, really quickly too, if I sound a little bit different, my mic broke. I went on Buffalo Jet Fan live stream on Monday night at 7, so go check that out if you wanted some extra listening. If you don't check out Buffalo Jet Fan, make sure you do that. And then I was also on Ryan's channel, Jets Talk 24/7, with him and Matt O'Leary for 2 hours on Tuesday nights. Make sure you go check those out. Right before I was doing one of the streams, I was going to plug in my mic, and I don't know how, but the thing you plug it into in the mic got pushed up into the mic. So I can't plug in my little thing to plug into my computer. So I'm using a different mic, which I know does not sound as good. So I apologize for that. And in terms of film reviews, Anthony G, by the way, which I didn't know or I know you didn't bring this up for this reason, but Aaron Rodgers is done. Quinn Williams is done. Sauce Gardner is done. Garrett Wilson is done. I said I actually record them, but the recording of the plays and watching the film are all done. Chuck Clark is done. McCole Hardman is done as of like an hour ago. Lazard is done. I was just about to type in Tristan Colon, the backup offensive lineman. He has 6 games I'm going to watch from 2020 to 2022. So 6 games of him, and then there's the Wes Schweitzer, whatever the hell his name is, the backup offensive lineman. I was going to watch him next, but obviously, pops up that Connor Hughes, who's the first one I saw on this, announced that the Jets had interest in Quentin Jefferson. Both parties want to get a deal done. And then about 10 minutes later, the Jets themselves announced that he was signing. So Connor Hughes got it right before they were about to announce it themselves anyway. But it's kind of like the Jets' way in terms of not announcing stuff and not really having stuff go out into the public, because we didn't hear about interviews with Jefferson or interest in Jefferson or anything about Jefferson. We heard about, obviously, Al Woods, who apparently went to the Browns yesterday or 2 days ago, didn't get a contract offer, or we haven't heard anything about that. And he's supposed to visit the Jets this week. So do they sign him tonight? That'd be awesome. Sign him tomorrow. Also awesome. Obviously, the sooner the better. But we didn't hear Quentin Jefferson at all. And the Jets put up on their social media account, like, finalized deal with the Jets or whatever. It's like, holy shit. Like, usually we hear about this stuff. And it's not like it's earth shattering where, it's like trading for Aaron Donald where we wouldn't be able to keep it under wraps. But Quentin Jefferson's a starting-ish level, rush D tackle. Based on what I've seen so far, and I'll read out some of his numbers later, but 5.5 sacks last year. He's pretty high in pressure rate. I believe he's the 5th highest in the NFL with like 11.1. I'll read the official stat later, but 5th highest with 11.1% pressure rate out of defensive tackles with a minimum of, I think, 200 reps or something like that. So he's a pass rushing guy. Now, I know he struggles a little bit against the run, so I think they're still going to have to plug the defensive line room with a run stuffer, which would be an Al Woods type. You have Al Woods, you have Ashawn Robinson, you have what's his face out there. There's another guy out there who plugs the run. Matt Ioannidis, whatever the hell his name is, from the formerly of the Commanders / Redskins and the Panthers last year. He's a run stuffing guy. So I would like to ideally see them plug the run stuffing role with one of those guys. It's a spot though where now with signing Quentin Jefferson, I feel like, again, he's a borderline starter. I think him and Sheldon Rankins are about even as pass rushers. Maybe Rankins has a little bit more to his game in the run game. So it might be a slight downgrade from Rankins. But if you were to pair a Jefferson with a Woods, I think the combination of those two might be better than a Rankins, and Rankins and a combination of him and Solomon Thomas or Nathan Shepard. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they handle it. But with all that being said, I think the Jets at this point might go into the draft and see if they get a run stuffing defensive tackle in the 4th or 5th round who they really like. If not, pivot back to the open market and try to sign a guy. To me, I'd rather just sign a guy in general, because these guys aren't going for a crazy amount of money. You can sign Al Woods for $2-3 million. And then listen, at the end of the day, you have Jefferson, you have Woods. Both of those guys are upgrades over Solomon Thomas, right? Solomon Thomas is your number 4 or 5 right now. If you go into the draft and you like a guy better than Solomon Thomas as that 4th, 5th defensive tackle, you get rid of Solomon Thomas. And if you don't want to get rid of Solomon Thomas, you carry a 5th defensive tackle. Typically you see teams carry about 9-10 defensive linemen. So can you have, 5 defensive tackles with Solomon Thomas, and then your ends would be what? Lawson, Huff, Clemens, JJ, and is there anybody else I'm forgetting? Lawson, JJ, Clemens, JFM. Okay. Yeah, so you're going to have about 9 or 10 guys, which is acceptable, perfectly acceptable for a defensive line, especially defensive line for a coach who likes to rotate so heavily. So it's they gave themselves some flexibility. They really, really needed a starting defensive tackle. They got one. The next biggest need for the Jets right now is the center position, which I really hope is locked up again before the draft. I'm still on the same kind of path I was prior to the stream. And as I was a few weeks ago, just in terms of, hey, still bringing a defensive tackle, whether that be Al Woods and Ashawn Robinson, whoever that may be, bring in Ben Jones, bring in McGovern. I know there's people who like Ben Jones more than McGovern because of the concussion problems in the last year, but people talk about Ben Jones now like he's been injured throughout his career. He's been actually very healthy. It's just the last 2 years the last year with the concussion. So bring in one of Ben Jones or Connor McGovern, and then to me, figure out receiver, because I don't want to go into the draft with a massive need at receiver. Now I can see the Jets drafting receiver at 13, whether that be a JSN or an Addison or whoever it may be. But I'd rather go into the draft not needing that receiver, because at this point in time, and I'll talk about it more with Kyle, because it's a little bit more natural to get into some film discussions when you have another guy on the stream, at least for me personally. But I don't want to go into the draft with McCole Hardman as a 3 and Lazard as a 2. That's assuming that Corey Davis is traded. If not, okay, different story. But I feel like with the Jets right now, and it's almost hard to kind of remember if I said this on my streams in the past or if I was on with Buffalo or with Ryan the other day and talked about this. But nonetheless, I guess I can repeat myself if I've already said it on the stream. But with the receiver position, it's going to be OBJ. It's going to be Corey Davis. It's going to be a draft pick at 13, in my opinion. Now, even if they get OBJ, I have a feeling, or I would personally like to, let's say they sign OBJ, right? And then with 13 and with 42, they do whatever they're going to do. Let's assume it's an offensive lineman and another offensive lineman. in the 4th round, if they like a receiver that slips there, might they draft a 4th round receiver, let him sit at 5 and not sign Cobb? And then you have rookie 4th round receiver at 5 and Mims at 6. Because at the end of the day, like, yeah, if healthy, if they sign OBJ, or even if it's Corey Davis, let's say it's Corey Davis or OBJ, you have Garrett Wilson, knock on wood, he's been healthy, but still he's your one. Behind him, Lazard has been relatively healthy, but he's still had some injuries in recent years. And even past him, okay, let's still assume he's relatively healthy. You have OBJ, who hasn't played a game in a year and a half, and who's had back-to-back ACLs. And you have Corey Davis, who's played about, 11, 12 games each of the last 2 seasons. So would you like to draft a guy who might be able to step in for one of those guys? Because you're going to assume one of them is going to go down at a certain point. So maybe that's a little bit of like an underrated need if they do bring in OBJ or keep it Corey Davis, a depth wide receiver at 5. Now, if they bring in Cobb at 5th, okay, I'm fine with that. Again, people I think are a little bit crazy in terms of saying Cobb is not even like a rosterable player. I think if he's your number 5, he's better than our number 5s last year. I know it's getting repetitive, but I said it right now. Any route, whether it be an out, a comeback, whatever it is, I'm taking Cobb to win that over Jeff Smith. I'm taking Cobb to win that over Denzel Mims right now. And I know Denzel Mims fanboys are going to go crazy on me for saying that, but Mims was so inconsistent last year. You cannot rely on him. Before that ball even got snapped for that one route, is Mims going to be offside? Is he going to be, I don't know, illegally moving before the snap? So, receivers are an interesting spot, but I still think D tackle gets addressed before the draft. I still think center gets addressed before the draft, and I think OBJ signs. I'm not going to bank on it. There was the rumors that there's the rumor out there that the Ravens offered a contract for him recently, and then I think that same day it might have been Rappaport who said that if the Jets and him were close on a contract, he would most likely visit the Jets, which they've already talked about the owners' meetings and all that stuff. But you take an official visit, sure, great, do that. But with Odell, I'm really not willing to go much more than Corey Davis. Like, there's people on Twitter who seem, Odell for $14 million, that's fine. If it's going to be a lot more than Corey Davis, I don't really want him. Just because he hasn't proven a lot in the last couple of years now. If we're looking towards like the ceiling of Odell, and he is what he was with the Rams for those 6 or 7 games, great. But who's the guarantee he's going to be that? So with Odell, I think you have to sign to an incentive-based deal. $7 million, $8 million is the most I would go for base, and then let's give him an extra $2, $3, $4 million based on catches, based on games played. A contract that at the base is $7 million, maybe you can get there 10 or 11. But any more than that, when do you want to go to the less volatile, maybe not as high ceiling Corey Davis? Because Corey Davis is never going to reach the peak I think Odell could with the Jets if he's healthy this year. But at the same point, I don't think he's going to hit the floor either. So when do you want to go with a safe player? And I want to go with a safe player as soon as Odell's contract becomes not extraordinarily higher than Corey Davis's demands, but somewhat higher than Corey Davis's demands. Once you get Odell you're talking about with incentives, 11, 12, 13, $14 million, that's when I'm backing up a little bit out of that. And then you're going with receiving core, which isn't necessarily star-studded, but if your receiver core next year going to the year is Davis, Wilson, Lazard, and Hardman, again, I think it's a mid-level receiving core in the NFL. And even with Odell, I don't think it's going to be the strongest receiving core in the NFL. At the end of the day, I know Odell's not going to be here for another year or two, or past at least 2 years. I know Corey Davis is going to be past here 2 years. I would have rather just kept Elijah Moore, to be completely transparent. But at the end of the day, if we're going to get into the trade stuff and he wants to be out of here, there's going to be people out there who say, "Oh, well, he requested a trade for the second time." Did he really, or did we just hear that? Or did it just was the trade kind of the first trade request just never rescinded? I don't know. Would have Elijah Moore been a bad apple with Aaron Rodgers if we didn't see targets? I see that. I don't see that as much. I would see him being a problem with Zach Wilson, still their starting quarterback. So I think he'd be fine with Aaron Rodgers. You keep him for 2 years. And maybe Odell is a 1-for-1 better player than Elijah Moore at this very moment, maybe. But with that being said, Elijah Moore is going to cost $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million for each of the 2 next seasons, while Odell is going to cost you $7 to $11 million, whatever it may be. So Elijah Moore may be better, maybe not better, but he's much more cost efficient, and he's a lot more young, and he's a lot more healthy. So interesting spot with the receiving core, but they have to figure that out as well. The only other pivot I could see is, again, Odell, Davis, or you go into the draft and you draft one at 13. My preferred option of all the guys right now, being transparent, I haven't really watched a ton of them, but just based on what I've watched, it would be JSN. And at that point, your question is going to be, okay, well, what do you do at tackle? At that point, I know Nani's done an article on him, but I think one of the better tackles available right now on the free agent market, a guy who's like a spot starter. He can be your starter for a season, but you don't necessarily want him to be a starter for your season, like for the rest of your season. I almost feel like he's like a little bit younger, maybe not younger at this point, but what the hell is his name from a couple of years ago? Moses. What was his first name? What is his last name? Moses. The tackle beside Moses. And unless I'm just completely forgetting his name, maybe I'm just an idiot. But the Moses signing from a couple of years ago at right tackle is kind of what I would feel like if Cam Fleming was assigned with the Jets. And I think at that point, if you were to draft JSN, you didn't really have another tackle to go with the grouping of Mekhi Becton, Max Mitchell, and Dwayne Brown. I don't think that's enough. Do I think you have to add a first-round pick necessarily to that group? No, I don't think you have to. Would I prefer that? Sure. But all things always don't work out the way you want them to. So if you have to sign a Cam Fleming to that group and roll and hope you're a little bit healthier than last year, okay, it is what it is. But with all that being said, I'd rather just address some of those needs before the draft. Now, maybe they pivot and we're all expecting them to sign OBJ, but they signed Cam Fleming. We're like, okay, shit, maybe they don't need another tackle. And they're going to draft a receiver at 13. But at the minimum, synergy tackle still, I'm feeling. Receivers up there. Again, safeties up there. We can talk about the fact that Taylor Rapp signed 1 year, $1.7 million deal with the Bills as a guy we were looking into in terms of safeties. And you're looking at a lot of these safety contracts, whether it be, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson getting like $8 or $9 million a year, Taylor Rapp getting 1.7. It seems like you're going to be able to get a Rodney McLeod or a John Johnson, guys who are not necessarily star free safeties in the league, but guys who are going to be at least placeholder starters who are going to be okay back there, which is a much bigger upgrade over Joyner. Joyner was absolutely terrible last year. So if you can get a massive upgrade in the secondary with $2 million of your salary cap, then I would be willing to do it. Now, another kind of thought process with the position. Some people out there thinking that the Jets might keep Whitehead and Clark. The only way I can see them keeping Whitehead and Clark is if they were to take a Whitehead and make him pretty strictly a big nickel, a third linebacker per se type of guy, or do that with Clark. Clark is very good in the box. He's very good in the linebacker role. So do they put one of those guys as the third linebacker? Again, big nickel type player, and then get another free safety? I think that's a possibility instead of signing a Quan back or whoever it may be. But I don't think there's a world we should be living in where Clark and Whitehead are your starting safeties, because I think Clark could play deep safety at times, and I like him as better in a middle third than I do in like a cover 2 or just strictly in a cover 1 and being that deep safety. Where stuff can kind of get funneled to him and he can process it, because I think he's a good processor. But overall, I still like him underneath. Talking about going for a Super Bowl run with the Jets right now, you're going to be facing guys like Allen, Mahomes, Lawrence, Lamar Jackson, Watson if he bounces back, Russell Wilson if he bounces back slightly in the playoffs. So you need some good safeties. And to me, you get rid of a Whitehead for $6-7 million. I think $7.5 million you can save. You sign a Rodney McLeod for $2-3 million. You can even sign Quan back for $2-3 million, and then boom, you just took Whitehead's salary and you made that Quan Alexander and Rodney McLeod or John Johnson. I think both those guys are upgrades individually over what Whitehead offers to the Jets. So I'll be watching out for that, because I don't really think there's a way that Whitehead should be here. Again, unless he's a linebacker, and I still necessarily wouldn't agree with it, because that's an expensive linebacker replacement where I think you just take Quan, save the money, and pay him half of what Whitehead is making, and then put, Chuck Clark with that full-time strong safety type role. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Let's say hello to the chat a little bit. Can I delete anything? But actually, seriously, with the film, though, a lot of stuff's coming out. Again, Rodgers, Clark, Hardman, Lazard, all these guys. I'm about to do Cologne and Schweitzer, again, whatever his name is. I don't think you guys seriously want me to do Tim Boyle. If you guys really want me to do Tim Boyle, I will. There's I don't know. I was looking at there's 5 or 6 games I could do with Tim Boyle. But if I'm going to do that and I'm going to invest 4 hours into it and get 300 people who watch, I'd rather not. So I don't think I'm going to do it, especially now considering we signed Quentin Jefferson. Hopefully we sign an Al Woods. So those guys are going to be first, and then it's going to be Schweitzer, then it's going to be Cologne, and then I'm really, I don't know. Tim Boyle might be an August review for 5 minutes, but I don't think you guys are going to want me to do that. But for OBJ, kind of mentioned that. Again, just going through some of the notes here. $7-8 million plus incentives make it 10-11 max contract. Past that, I'm going to do Corey Davis. just because Corey Davis, while again the ceiling is not as high, he's been on the field at least the last 2 years. We talked about Cam Fleming as another tackle option for the Jets. He visited the Jags a couple days ago, so that's something to monitor for the Jets because, again, I feel like that's another pivot they can make later in the offseason. It was Morgan Moses, by the way. I haven't seen the chat yet, but it popped into my mind, Morgan Moses. So Cam Fleming / a Morgan Moses signing potential at sometime in the offseason. That's potential for the Jets. If they're not able to end tackle, I'm still betting on the Jets right now, landing receiver, landing a tackle. Now, which tackle? I don't know. I think the top 3 for me right now, and I think Broderick Jones would be in the conversation, but he's just way too raw for a team who's trying to make a Super Bowl run this year. I feel like he's not going to be a great player in year 1, maybe not in year 2, maybe not ever. But in general, he's a player who I think is going to struggle more in year 1 than some other tackles. I think Paris Johnson might struggle in year 1 more than some other tackles. So I feel like the safest pick for the Jets at tackle is probably Skoronski. After Skoronski, who may be a better guard, he might be an all-pro guard, but just a very good tackle. I am kind of along that line of thinking as well. But I still think he's pretty safe. I think he's going to be a solid tackle. I don't really think his floor is too low. So do you draft him at 13? Do you draft a Johnson who's a little bit more raw but has a really high physical upside? And then a guy who's been rising up the boards in recent weeks is Darnell Wright, and I know he's just a right tackle prospect apparently, but the Jets could use a right tackle just as much as they can use a left tackle. So if Darnell Wright not being a left tackle is not going to cut me off from drafting him, it'll almost be preferred because you can have Becton compete with Dwayne Brown at left tackle, and whoever wins. Great. Then you have a good backup in either case. And then, assuming you're going to bring in a Darnell Wright, he's going to start over a Max Mitchell, most likely, 95% most likely. And then you have Max Mitchell as a backup. Great. So we'll see what happens. Draft in exactly 3 weeks from today. This is going to be the least amount I know about a draft in quite a while. The first round of the draft, and you guys got to let me know. I know you guys will show up because this stream, everybody else is on, everybody else does streams, and then we'll stream from 12 to 3, 4 o'clock in the morning after some of these drafts. But after the draft, I will definitely be banged up coming on here and talking with you guys. And then I might live stream round 2 and 3. I don't really know. I might live stream rounds 4 through 7. The only problem is with these streams, not really a problem, I guess, but I don't really know a ton about the guys in rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm not gonna be like, I really like this guy. This tackle or this center from Tennessee, it might be available in the 4th. I'm not gonna be able to talk like that this year at all. So I don't know if you guys really even want to be on a stream with me until I figure out more about those guys. If you do, then cool. We can pound a few brews and do whatever else. Maybe talk about the draft some, but I don't know. So we talked about the Ravens offer to OBJ. That's something I mentioned in the past. Or in the last couple of minutes, OBJ with the Ravens would be interesting because is it about friendships? Like, is he boys with Lamar? Does he know Lamar is going back? Does he not know Lamar is coming back? Does he even want to go there? Because the thing about the Ravens in the last couple of years is they haven't really been able to land the bigger receivers out there, and maybe that's for lack of a trying. But you hear the rumors out there, or just the general feeling out there, is that receivers don't want to go there because the offense isn't geared towards receiver production. And Jackson's not a guy who really throws the ball very far outside. He's an inside the numbers guy. So if you have a stud X receiver who's going to win vertically and stuff, it's not necessarily the best offense to win in. So what do you even go there? So I saw that offer pop up, but maybe they're lowballing him. I'm not so nervous. I think if the Jets wanted OBJ, they would get him. But it could also be OBJ waiting for the Jets right now at this point. Like, hey, sign Rodgers. I have time to wait. At the end of the day, let's say you're giving him $7 million, that can become 10 or 11. Maybe he feels a little bit of a low ball, but it's his best offer out there. So there's no harm, no foul right now for OBJ to wait and see if a guy goes down or whatever it may be, or a team ups their offer while he waits for Aaron Rodgers. Now, once Aaron Rodgers commits to the Jets, once Aaron Rodgers is traded for, maybe he just, okay, I'm going to sign there, and it is what it is. But again, he has the benefit of time right now, at least in my opinion. Now, should he sign if I was Odell, depending on interest, would I sign before the draft? The Jets would pick 13. Yeah, it might be a little bit sketchy because if they draft the guy, there's no need for Odell. So I think Odell, if signed, would be before the draft. That'd be smarter for him because those teams that need receivers are going to hope to draft them. And if they draft them, they don't have need for Odell. So we heard a little bit about that. We also have heard a little bit about Al Woods. He visited the Jets and the Browns. And this is before they signed Quentin Jefferson. But to me, it's a piece that you really can't afford to miss because they didn't have that guy in Quentin Jefferson who could be a spot starter for the Jets. And I think Al Woods could be a spot starter. The only problem with Al Woods is he's 6'3", 6'4", 330 pounds, so he's a run-stuffing guy. So I think he'd be a really good pairing with Quentin Jefferson. Quentin Jefferson being the pass down specialist, while Al Woods is the run stuffer. The only question I have with that, and thinking about the Jets system, is they do like full substitutions. It's not necessarily based on first down, second down, third down. So I would not like to see them do that as much with guys like Al Woods and Quentin Jefferson, because they're guys who are going to be pretty specific to pass or run. So it's not just, everybody sub in at the same time. You can't just sub in, Al Woods into a pass down. You can't just sub in Quentin Jefferson on a rundown when Al Woods is supposed to be out there. So they think the Jets will have to readjust their rotation a little bit if they are to sign an Al Woods. And even Quentin Jefferson in general. You don't want Quentin Jefferson in on 3rd and 1 when it's a potential run. So they're going to have to address that a little bit. But, Al Woods would be another guy I would like to see the Jets sign. And in terms of the Quentin Jefferson thing, 6'4", 290. There's some stats out there. I think Nania and Steven from Jets X Factor put this out, but he was 14th in pressures. This is in 2022. Quentin Jefferson was 14th in pressures at 42 and 16th in sacks with 6. I think it's actually 5.5. He was also the 5th highest in pressure rate among 105 defensive tackles with at least 300 snaps at 11.7%. So good pressure rate. Struggles versus the run. Still need to run stuffer again. Some names to watch out for: Al Woods, Sean Robinson, Matt Ioannidis. Shelby Harris is out there. So I think it's something the Jets will look into in terms of signing somebody else. Just to run through the notes again, I'm literally just running through the notes and then just doing the chat for the rest of the time, because I have like 3 more things I've written down. We talked about Tim Boyle. Okay, he knows the offense. He was with the Packers, I think, 2 years where Hackett was there in 19 and 20. Fine, he can run in camp. We figured out a little bit about Mecole Hardman's incentives in his contract. And I don't have all of them, but there's some for getting to the divisional round, getting to the conference championship, getting to the Super Bowl, I believe. And then there's incentive clauses as well for 50 catches or more, 60 catches or more, 650 receiving yards or more, 750 receiving yards or more, and 850 or more. And it goes like 100. It's whole process. Like 650 is 125, 750 is 250, and 850 is 500,000. So I don't think Mecole Hardman's going to have 70 catches or more for that 500,000, the top incentive for catches. And I don't think he's going to have 850 yards or more for the 500,000 on the receiving yards end. So I didn't do the math for exactly what I think the contract would be, but 850, does he get to 850 yards? I'm going to take the under. Does he get to 750 yards for 250,000? I'm going to take the under on 750. Does he get 650 or more? If I'm 650 or more for Hardman, it's almost hard to guess that. Like if I had a crystal ball and I could see if his jet sweeps and end arounds are going to be pop passes or actual handoffs, that would kind of do the difference for me. But if I had to bet 60 or more for Hardman, I would say under. I think ideally he's your wide receiver 4. He's a Barrios replacement, and above him in the offense. Like, let's start counting guys that we'd rather. And obviously depend on the situation. We're talking about a straight 9 route or a slice route or a post route. Okay, Hardman might be up there, or an end around might be different. But in general, just in terms of touches in a game, like where is he on the pecking order in the Jets offense? Right, like we definitely have Brees at the minimum. Right, you could have Michael Carter or Zonovan Knight, but we're not going to count those guys. Let's just leave them to the wayside for now and be relatively conservative. But you want Brees having more touches than him. I want Conklin having more touches than him. I'm sorry, and people are down on Conklin, but they'll change their tune this year. So Brees, Conklin, Lazard, Garrett Wilson, and OBJ or Corey Davis are options over Hardman. So at best, Hardman's your 6th option in the offense. Does your 6th option in the offense get 60-plus catches and over 650, 750, or 850 yards? So I think you're going to get closer to that, hopefully that 5.5. And honestly, hopefully it's 6.5, because hopefully it just dominates for the Jets. But I don't think he's going to make the max of 6.5 is what I'm trying to say. Past that, we saw a little bit in terms of the Brees news talking about him, that he was going to be ready for week 1. That was a report out there. I'm not sure exactly where it came out. Now, with that being said, like, you want to be relatively conservative with him. You want to make sure he's good to go. And I think the Jets are smart enough to realize that this year is playoff push, Super Bowl or bust year. I don't think they're going to go hard. We saw in week 1. See how he responds. 5 reps. Next game he responds well, give him 12, 15. If he responds well after that, give him more. But you don't want to rush Brees out there and, first game out there, 20 to 30 reps. So I think they'll work him in slow, see how he responds. And maybe he takes a little while. He might be taking reps where he looks fine, but really he's kind of 80%, 85% back into it because, Saquon Barkley made it back after some of his ACL injuries, but it took him a full year to get back to his peak level. So, and I think Breece Hall's his ACL, in terms of the actual injury, was a what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't as bad as it could have been, I guess, in terms of some ACL injuries. So it was a relatively clean injury. So hopefully it happens soon, or hopefully he recovers sooner rather than later. Past that, I just went through my notes, just didn't really pause and just got through them. And if they come back up in the chat organically, then they do. But from now on, it's just you guys for the next hour and a half. I have nothing else to talk about. So I just want to pull up a list of D tackles or bring up film or whatever. It's all you guys. So Joe the GOAT. Appreciate that, Snoopy. Snoopy's a lot of interest in the NHL playoffs, by the way, because I just thought about it because I picked up the Devils Cup. I'm going to the first game. I think it's game 1. I don't know exactly when it's going to be, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be Devils Rangers. So I'll be in the first level Devils Rangers game. So that's exciting. But Snoopy is also the GOAT. Sneakers and Boots, what's up? Captain K Techno from Ireland is in the house. What's up, Captain K Techno? Boyle is Zach's competition. Yeah, like I would have rather just had a guy who has proven more. And I'm not saying that Chase Daniel or any of these guys like resume is stacked, but do I have a lot more faith in a Daniel or in a Bridgewater or in whoever else that we've discussed in recent weeks over Zach Wilson or over a Boyle? Yeah, I do. So I'm not thrilled with the move. But at the end of the day, he knows the system. Did Brian Hoyer know the system? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think so. Does a Bridgewater know the system? Maybe, maybe not. I have to track back to all of his offenses, but maybe he didn't know exactly what it was, and they want a guy who can come in right now. They could lead the team through it in OTAs, and I'm not saying that he's going to necessarily be throwing bombs down the field or anything like that, but is Boyle going to at least get guys lined up in the right spots and have the right calls in the huddle for OTAs? Yeah, he'll be able to do that. So I'm overlooking I'm thinking too much into this, and he's just a camp body who can run the offense for now, and then in 2 months he's cut and Bridgewater's brought in. Maybe that's a possibility, but again, there are better names out there, in my opinion, than a Boyle. If he's walking into, again, knock on wood, week 17, quarter 3, because Aaron Rodgers just, I don't know, got a concussion, so he can come back from in a week or two. Do I have faith in him? No, not really. So I don't know. Randy23, Joe B, first time live on your channel. Saw you the other day with Ryan and was blown away. You rocked it. I appreciate that, Randy. So if I can legitimately go to any one of those channels and just get one loyal listener per time I do it, then it's worth it. So Randy23 is the guy. So Randy, I appreciate you being here. Hopefully you're not. So just for Randy, every other week I do a solo stream. So it's just me talking to the chat, and then I'll bring on Kyle Smith, my co-host, or Nani, or whatever it may be. And then the main crux of this channel, past the live streams, is film. So I'll do actual film reviews, ones that are an hour or two. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be 4 parts, probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours each. That's a lot of film review. And then in terms of film on the channel too, like if you guys, like Randy, you don't know, but if you want to ask any question, like, hey, a bad play from Whitehead in coverage, can you show that? Or a bad angle, or what was that play, or whatever, I can do it. I'll pull it up. So usually 99% of people don't care about the film that it's here for the chat, but it is what it is. Boyle going to beat out Zach. I have 0% faith in Zach. Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, like Zach is up there with the biggest bust in NFL draft history, and not necessarily like the film backs it up too. So it's not like it's a lie, but if you're looking statistically at him versus Jamarcus Russell and Ryan Leaf and stuff, it's really not so different. So is there that slight chance, in some far dimension, that Zach Wilson turns it around? Sure. But has it been done like less than 1% of the time in NFL history? Yeah. So if you're willing to take that risk, then fine. Like you're getting the odds at like plus 12 million. So put $1 on it and win. I suck with that stuff. For $12 million. I'm not exactly what it paid, but Randy23, what do you think about the D tackle signing? And honestly, not thrilled with Boyle. I feel like we have 2 Zach Wilsons. Yeah. Now he's been in the NFL for 4 or 5 years. He was with the, I think it's 4 years, right? He was with the Packers for his first 2 years, UDFA in 2018. So 19, 20, he was with the Packers. 21 was with the Bears, and 22 was with the Lions. I don't think it's bad if you're looking at it as, okay, again, he can get the offense ready in a couple of weeks for OTAs where there's no quarterback out there who can get the team ready. So they want a head start on installing the offense and getting guys used to it. Okay, if that's the plan, I'm cool with it. If the plan is for Tim Boyle, or is it even Tim? I don't know. Is the plan for Boyle to be the legitimate backup to a Aaron Rodgers the entire season? Then I'm not as big of a fan because I feel like there's better guys out there. I get he understands the offense, but at the end of the day, I want the best guy backing up my quarterback that I can possibly have. Obviously, assuming it's in a cost-effective move. Like, we could have said that Jameis Winston a couple of months ago would have been the best backup, but for the price he's paid, it's obviously not smart to invest that much in a backup quarterback when you're already bringing in a Aaron Rodgers. So Papa Bear knows best. What's up, Joe? I'm thinking this is a continuity signing. Boyle will be the one mentoring Zach on Hackett's system while they're both sitting on the sideline. That's a possibility too, Papa Bear. In terms of like, okay, Aaron Rodgers is going to be out there. Aaron Rodgers is going to be taking first team reps in practice. And what is quarterback 2 and 3 doing a lot? They're standing on the side, and they're not really taking a ton of meaningful reps. And while Rodgers is I'm not speaking out of turn here, but Aaron Rodgers, while taking reps, can't coach Zach through said reps. So it might not be the worst thing for Tim Boyle. I'm calling him Tim for the time being. If I could be wrong on Tim, but Tim Boyle could coach Zach through the or at least talk him through some of the offensive reads and what he's doing and the drops, etc. But again, I don't think he's the best option to come into a game and win. So Anthony J says bug camera finally fixed. Now here's to the new mic fund. The funny thing is it fixed itself, Anthony J. So this is something I said in the past. Like I had that little scratch on the screen and it disappeared for a few months and then it showed up again. And now it's gone again. So I don't know what that is on the screen when that happens. But it went away. I didn't get a new camera. But here's the praying that it's not going to come back. But I appreciate the $5 for the new mic fund. Yeah, the mic broke. The mic I used to have it's in shambles now. It doesn't work. And I actually bought this one for like $200, and I set it up. And then I did the show with the new and improved mic, and everybody's like, the mic quality doesn't sound as good as the old shitty mic. So I went back to the old shitty mic. And now I'm using the new mic, which is a downgrade. So I might just stay with this mic, or I might figure out a better system. I was talking to Ryan and Matt the other day, and they're more technically savvy than I am. So maybe I have to get a recommendation on a nice mic to get, because I don't think this one cuts it very much. Snoopy says, and I appreciate the super chat, Anthony J. It's Snoopy says, this Rodgers trade is annoying. I don't like Craig Carton or Rich Eisen or anyone fake ass Jets fans. Craig Carton, I'm not going to get on my soapbox because some people hate it. I'm not a WFAN guy at all. I'm not an ESPN guy at all. I'm not a Craig Carton guy. I'm not a Boomer Esiason guy. I'm not an Evan Roberts guy. I just don't listen to that stuff. It's just not my flavor. And I don't think they're all so well informed. Again, don't think I'm speaking out of turn there. But yeah, and Rich Eisen, I don't really have a problem with. I think he's a real Jets fan. Maybe you don't like him speaking for you, but he seems to be a real Jets fan. Maybe he effectively, put the cloth over my eyes, but Craig Carton, definitely not. And in terms of the Rodgers trade, yeah, it's annoying because we were waiting for weeks and weeks and months for it to finally happen. Rodgers just to say where he was going to go, and then it comes out that he intends to play for the Jets, and then we're like, okay, the trade's gonna happen any day now. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. It's like shit, dude. Like we were all so excited, it all built up. We got him. But now we have to wait. Like it never fails with the Jets that, yeah, we landed the golden ticket here, at least for a year or two. But now we have to wait for him and have that 1% of doubt. Like, oh, well, what if the Niners come in? Oh, well, what if he just retires? Oh, well, what if the Packers keep him? Like we know it's less than a 1% chance that he's not on the Jets, but it's just annoying that we have to wait for him. We have to wait for the interview. We have to wait for him, being featured on One Jets Drive. We have to wait for, Saleh and the players to officially talk about him, even though Lazard and I think Quentin Jefferson was talking to like Josina Anderson or whatever after he signed. He's like, yeah, with Rodgers here. Like, so everybody knows he's here, but still, it's still annoying. Like, I just want it to happen as well. I have a very strong feeling it's going to happen before the draft, just because with the Jordan Love, I know second round pick doesn't necessarily make or break a player, but would you rather have a second round pick? Let's say that's a center, a tackle, a receiver, a tight end, whatever they're going to use it on in the second round. The Packers, that being, you rather have that player than not to surround Jordan Love with, because they still have to figure out if he's the guy at the end of the day. And obviously teams, a second round pick's not a second round pick in the trade value chart, because you can have one that's, a 33rd overall.
second round pick. You can have a pick that's the second or the 64th overall pick in the second round. So obviously they're all going to have their own value, but the Packers rather have the higher second round pick this year. You'd assume as well, instead of later second round picks in years down the road with the Jets. Now, I think a second round pick for the Jets at this year at pick 43 equals a second and a fifth next year, because that fifth might equal that 20 spot drop or whatever's going to happen there. Hopefully a 20 spot drop, right? From 43 to about 62 because the Jets are going to the Super Bowl, or actually 64. So 64. I said 63, right? So we're going to make the Super Bowl just lose it. I apologize. Let's see. What is your scouting report on Quentin Jefferson? Per Nania, Franco, Codnigalone? I can't read right now. Jefferson plays 133rd at his position with a run stop rate with a run stop rate of 3.3%. He only had 7 run stops in 17 games. What's your thoughts? Yeah, so I can talk about this a little bit. I know I'm behind the chat. He's a pass rush only guy. Now, in terms of like his scouting report and why he struggles versus the run, I don't necessarily know why. Him being 290 pounds, 6'4", he's obviously a little bit light for the inside. This is why I feel it's imperative that they bring in a Sean Robinson, a Al Woods, whoever else that we've been talking about, Shelby Harris, because I don't think he's enough to solve the hole that they left with Rankins. And even with Rankins, you had a run stuff hole. Like that was our problem last year, was run stuffing. And Rankins improved from 21 to 22, but he still wasn't good there. And then past him, he wasn't good. And then you brought in Shepard and Thomas, who were terrible there. So even if Rankins was back, you'd still need a run stuffer in here. So I think Quentin Jefferson's a slight downgrade from Rankins in both aspects, definitely more so on the run. But regardless, you need to bring in another run stuffer. So he's a pass rush only guy. Now, could I watch the next 16 games? I'm going to watch with Quentin Jefferson, which, not shocking news. He takes priority over the Wes Schweitzers and the whatever the other guy's name is, Tristan Colognes of the world. So I will be working on him as of tomorrow morning. So I'll have a report for you guys the next week, or at least a general report. And then if you're a paying subscriber, you get the whole list of strengths and weaknesses, which I have for every player. Even for Aaron Rodgers, he has some weaknesses, and he has a lot of strengths. Craig Carter is a shock jock and the biggest flip flopper with his fanhood. Yeah, I've only seen very little things on Twitter in recent years of him, but I know what he is. I don't need any recent takes of him, but the opinions are definitely not rooted in any knowledge. That's for sure. So I like, okay. Yeah. So Jordan Nelson, I don't mean to ignore you, Jordan. I just don't want to harp too much on these guys. One, because I'm not them. And two, some people don't like me talking shit and think I need to worry about myself, which is partially true. But sometimes when people bring up a Carton or a Baldy type guys, it comes out. So we got to break the second hex this year. Yeah, they've broken it at least more so recent than in like from 2013 to like 2020. It was brutal, right? Or really when was Marcus May drafted? 2017, right? 2017, 2018. So we've had some good players, at least with Elijah Moore there. We have Breece Hall. We had Marcus May. But those years, it was like Vlad Ducasse, Jay Samaro, Christian Hackenberg, Devin Smith, Stephen Hill. You can even count Geno at that time. There were some really, really bad picks in the second round. But yeah, I would like to see a second round pick legitimately stay for a couple of years and be a good player. I think Marcus May truly broke that. Now he left after his rookie contract, but still he broke it. Breece is breaking it, obviously assuming that he is going to be healthy. If he is not, then throw that to the second round curse. But let's not assume that. It's chip time, boys. And this is the thing too. Like, and I know he's been born to start. Plenty of out there. And the Jets, there's a report. I think Scott Mason put it out there. Talking to a cap guy. If the Jets wanted to, just based on restructures, they can create another $40 million in cap space. So I know they're at like $9 million. And then let's just say that's equal to the draft class. Draft class is about $4 or $5 million, and you want a good like $3 or $4 million for in-season costs. Let's say we're kind of working from zero right now. You have to have about $15, $16 million, whatever it's going to be for Aaron Rodgers' contract. Okay, take away that $16 million, and you have a remaining about $24 million. You could sign Ben Jones, Odell Beckham, Quentin Jefferson, another D tackle, a linebacker, and a safety, all for that, almost all of that price. Now,
16 away. Yeah, 24. I'm trying to think. 24 million for about all those guys. Maybe it's not exactly. Maybe it would cost you $35 million instead of $24 million. But cut Whitehead from that group, and then boom, that $24 million past Rodgers now goes up to $31 million, and you could sign Quan $2-3 million, Rodney McLeod $2-3 million, Quentin Johnson. Let's say he costs you, I don't know what he's going to cost, 3.5. Al Woods for 3.5. Odell Beckham for 10. Ben Jones for 5. Like you could fit all that. You could fit all those guys. So they're not making any big splashes, but I think they're filling holes with lower end vets who are at least okay, and then even some average to plus player to plus average players like Quentin Jefferson's not. I would say he's more average because he's very good against the pass or solid against the pass and bad versus the run. But if you were to bring Ben Jones in here, he's average to plus average. Odell Beckham, if healthy, is average to plus average. So with the Jets roster last year, they only needed to retain their guys and fill some holes. Like me saying that Rodney McLeod's only a $2 million player and like more of like a lower tier but okay vet option, like it might sound like I'm kind of like shitting on him a little bit and not overly high on what he would be on the Jets, but it's not true because a vet player who was okay is a lot better than a vet player who's terrible last year in Joyner. Like Joyner was terrible at free safety last year. You replace him with a guy who's just average, upgrade. Whitehead was terrible last year. You replace him with Clark, a guy who's just average, big upgrade. Quan, okay, bring him back for $2-3 million, fine. The interior of the defensive line might have taken a little bit of a hit, but if they could pivot to a Jefferson and a Woods, you didn't take too big of a hit. And I think just bring in upgraded safety plays and help the defense a lot. So what to do with Lawson, what to do with Whitehead, that's going to be questions that will be answered later on in the offseason. But I think there's some easy upgrades on the offensive and defensive side. They're not going to cost that much. They're actually going to make a relatively big impact. And the Jets they made out well with the receiver market. Like, looking at years, just last year, Kirk getting 18, 19, $20 million, Zay Jones getting 10, 11, whatever it is. Like they made well out with Allen Lazard, $11 million. Okay. I think Corey Davis is a better player 1-for-1, but Lazard is at least on the field a little bit more and the familiarity with Rodgers. So I get it, but we didn't get outpriced with that one. We might not get outpriced with Odell Beckham. So the market has actually been relatively favorable to the Jets. The only thing that wasn't so favorable was maybe defensive tackle a little bit, but safeties are going for cheap, linebackers are going for cheap, centers are going for cheap, receivers are going for cheap. They're all positions the Jets need. So on this third, fourth, fifth wave of free agency, the Jets can make a legitimate impact. Now, again, maybe some of these guys are waiting for Aaron Rodgers to commit, and once he commits, dominoes start falling. But a couple more of these moves, and the Jets are solid. You had a first and a second round pick to this team, plus the Ben Joneses of the world, the Odell Beckhams, the starting safeties. They could still be a very, very good team. I don't think anybody's saying that they can't be a good team. I just think people are overreacting to them not necessarily going into these splashy areas of free agency. And they tried to. Like let's be transparent, or let's be honest here with ourselves. The Jets tried to, and I'm not trying to give them awards for being almost there, but they try to sign Cox, they try to sign Campbell. They apparently were in on Orlando Brown, and those would have been great moves, but then maybe they couldn't afford a starting, free safety because they got Orlando Brown. Now, obviously, the vacuum, I'm saying I want Orlando Brown over what's going on now in the offensive line, but still, they try to invest money in some more splashy spots that didn't work out. So hopefully now they continue to pivot to just plugging up some holes. You fill the tackle, you fill receiver, you fill center. You fill safety maybe, that you don't go into the draft and, this guy in the second round, they need this guy in the second round. Oh, they need this free safety in the fourth round because they don't have a guy. If you can plug in some of these spots with veteran guys, then you go into the draft with ultimate flexibility. And yeah, you're probably going to still need a guy or two, and that will be the first or second round picks. The backup centers, the starting tackles, the starting receivers, whatever it may be. But there's plenty of holes, linebacker, safety, D tackle, that I think you could fill. Going into the draft, that'll make you much more flexible. Then we need a tackle. Okay, fine. Let's see what happens at 13. But plenty of time left. Who the Jets did a good job not re-signing him? Morgan, I'm not sure exactly what that means. Marvin Guns, what's up? Danielle Barry Sports Highlights, what's up to you as well? If you don't have a review on Tim Boyle, what happens if the Jets don't sign? If they don't sign Rodgers, I will do a review on Tim Boyle. Or more realistically, if they don't sign Rodgers and Tim Boyle is a starting quarterback next year, then I will be taking a year off. So that's a more realistic thing. Marcus, what do you feel about Fluker, DJ Fluker? DJ Fluker, first round pick of was it the Chargers, like 2013, 2014? I know he's bounced around from, I think he started off as a tackle and then went to guard. And then he went to a few other teams in the last couple of years, and then he fell out of the NFL. And then he came back to Alabama's pro day and looked absolutely rocked up. So could you take a swing on him as a camp body? Sure. He hasn't played in 2-3 years. So if you're starting DJ Fluker, it's not, oh, well, look, he's jacked, so he's going to be the starting, right tackle for the Jets next year. Could you bring him in to compete for a roster spot and then see what happens? Sure. But if you're going to sign him thinking he's a starter, we're past that point. Or at least he shouldn't be just afforded the starting spot, or even really a backup spot. Like he has to compete with whoever it may be for said backup spot. But I feel like it's probably not going to happen, just because I think if he comes back to the NFL, he's probably going to be a guard. Now, maybe he's guard depth for the Jets, and they cut Wes Schweitzer or something like that. I don't know what the guaranteed money is, but not much. I don't feel much about Fluker. Good story. He looks pretty yoked up. Camp body okay, but I just don't see who he's displacing on the Jets roster right now. And it's a possibility. No Tim Boyle, who care about a fringe backup QB in which Zach should be down in camp. You'd hope he would, but what is he going to at this point? I don't know. Tim Boyle is good to just help our guys get. Yeah, exactly, Andrew. Many draft experts think Skronsky will be gone before the Jets pick, unless they trade up. I'll say two things. One, draft experts. What do draft experts really get right in a lot of years? Not much. And even with that being said, I probably agree with them. So I'll on one hand acknowledging that the draft experts are wrong plenty of the time. If I had to bet, would say that he would be gone. And it's with Skronsky gone, what are they going to do? Do they like a Johnson? Do they like a Jones? I don't know, because both guys are pretty raw, and ideally they develop into good players and stuff. But what if that's year 2-3 down or 2 or 3 years down the road where they're legitimately good, and you want players who are going to be more pro ready this year because of what Aaron Rodgers and this run kind of means. Like everything gets pushed to the middle now. So if you want more of a developmental pick at tackle, do the Jets maybe have a higher opinion of what Jones and Johnson will be in years 2 and 3, but they feel like Darnell Wright's the more pro-ready guy right now, so they take him instead. That's another kind of interesting tidbit into these guys. I'm not saying it's definitely necessarily going to make a difference in one guy over the other, but could it be more of a tiebreaker? I think it could be. But yeah, I think Skronsky would be gone before the Jets pick at 13, if I had to guess. But we never know, right? Bro, we don't need info on a quarterback brought in to make Zach feel better for. Okay, I don't know if that's. I don't know exactly what point I was in talking about him. It's crazy. This is my first year as a Jets fan where I didn't give one F about the draft. All I care about is a quarterback. Yeah, me too, Snoopy. Like I've gotten into the draft at like 0. I watched Paris Johnson. I did a review on him. I prepped one. I don't know if I'm even going to put it out. I did one on Skronsky. I just started one on Jones, and then I stopped. So I don't care so much about it either. This year is much more about see who's drafted, do reviews on him, and see how I feel about after the fact. But I'm just not putting so much time into it this year, where you put time into 15, like last year's at least 15 reviews of guys. You get one of them or 2 of them, and then the other 13 reviews don't matter. It's just a massive waste of time for me. Especially considering this year, I didn't even know if the 13th pick was going to be the Jets, so I got into the process late of even looking into the guy at 13. I was delayed in looking into the guys at 13. That's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes it's hard to talk to yourself. So yeah, I don't really care a lot about the draft either. We'll see after what's going to happen. But should I come on after the first round? I don't know. Should I come on for rounds 2 and 3? I don't know. If you guys want me to, I will. If not, I really don't care this year. I'll have plenty more info in the weeks after the draft, but during it, it's going to be, this 4th round guy, Jim Anderson. And I'll be like, oh, Jim Anderson makes me excited. Like, okay, yeah, Jim Anderson's, he's cool. I don't really know much about him, but hey, Boyle, could we have signed a worse backup? Yeah. There's again, he has a familiarity, so that's hopefully what it is for OTAs and things like that. If he's going to take actual legitimate reps or be in the backup quarterback position for the Jets, I'm not a fan of it. There's some guys out there who I feel like are veterans and can adjust to this system and provide more if they actually have to see the field. Now, if the Jets are going to be cocky about it and, Boyle's the best in terms of being a backup and knowing the system and teaching it to Zach and all that stuff, okay, fine. But you better hope that Aaron Rodgers doesn't get hurt and Boyle has to step into a game. Because from what I've seen from his stats and the little I've seen on Twitter, he doesn't look very good when he's in the game. Becton staying healthy and earns a starting job will really project how good this O-line offense can be. Yeah, and with the offense right now, if you're Joe Douglas, Becton has to be looked at as not as an afterthought, but a bonus. Like, you can't rely on Becton. I don't think you can go to the draft and say, oh, well, we have Becton locked down at left tackle or right tackle. We can't draft the guy. At the end of the day, he hasn't played in 2 years, so anything you get from him is a benefit. And you have the hope that he could start, or the hope that he could be a very good backup, but you can't depend on it. So operate as if he's not here, and anything is a benefit. And even past him, and even if he's at least a part of the equation, he's part of the equation. Whatever percentage chance you're going to put on him to start the whole year, which again, he's 0 for 2 the last 2. So what's the percentage chance he's going to last the entire year this year, or even a good chunk of it? Probably pretty low, for being honest, even though he's lost weight, which is great. You have Dwayne Brown, who's 38, almost 39 years old, whatever it is, and had shoulder surgery. Can rely on him. How much? Probably not a lot, or you shouldn't rely on him a lot. And then Max Mitchell had blood clots. That's pretty severe last year. We don't really know what the whole deal is with that. And then past that, he started for 3 or 4 games and was okay. And I'm not saying okay from a starting tackle level. I'm saying okay for a 4th-round rookie. From a starting tackle position, he was bad. Like, I know he had a couple of decent games. He had a decent game again, I think, against the Ravens. And then versus the Bengals and the Steelers, he got, or maybe it was the Browns he was okay in too. But then versus the Steelers and there's another game in there, he really struggled. So Max Mitchell was okay relative to expectations. He was if you're relying on him to be a starting tackle right now, you're in a pretty bad spot. So you have a bunch of question marks and maybes at tackle. So you just can't rely on them next year. So I think that goes with Becton. I think that goes with Mitchell. I think that goes with Dwayne Brown. So if I had to bet right now, the 13th pick is a tackle, unless, again, they were to miss out on Odell Beckham. Corey Davis is already involved in the trade for the Green Bay Packers for Aaron Rodgers, and you're sitting there with no Odell, no Corey Davis, and it's JSN versus Paris Johnson. I could see them pulling the trigger on JSN and then drafting a tackle in the 2nd round. And at that point, hopefully, you have a Ben Jones. So it's either one of those 2 positions for me, receiver or offensive line right now. So trust the other Joe for the draft. Hopefully. Marvin Guns. I think it's always you, Marvin Guns. You'll put the super chat and then the question under it. You're able to do both in the same. But regardless, I appreciate the super chat and I have the question under it. What are OBJ's best attributes? Well, it's something I have to go back and really, really watch what he did with the Rams. But in the past, his explosion, his yak ability, which I know has left his body a little bit. He's not an elite yak guy, but with the Rams, he's still capable of yak. So he's still a capable yak guy. Obviously, his hands are amazing. Now, I'm not sure if I have to watch him specifically to know if he suffers from focus drops, but he has really, really good hands. His ability to catch the balls outside of his frame. His ability to go and get balls deep is another one of his good attributes. I think he's a really good route runner. So you're looking at route running, you're looking at hands, you're looking at yak. Now, are any of them to elite levels now? Because he's 30 years old and suffered from 2 ACLs? Maybe not. I still think the only thing that's probably elite is his ability to catch his ball outside of his frame and his hands. But he still offers some yak, some really good route running at this point. Now, again, I could have a completely different list in 2-3 weeks when he signs here. But in general, watching OBJ, that's kind of what you think about. A guy who can play slot or outside, a guy who makes really tough catches. He could really win anywhere on the field. Now, some has some of that speed left him. Maybe some has some of the quickness in terms of short area explosion and the ability to get yak. Has it left him? Maybe, but I'll have to get a deeper dive in a couple of weeks, hopefully, when he signs. Franco, aren't you worried about signing these Seattle's D tackles? Seattle's defense against the run was the 3rd worst in 2023. These are all reasons why. Yeah, but Yes, and Quentin Jefferson, and this is the thing with Quentin Jefferson, we are already kind of acknowledging that he's not necessarily the best run stuffer. So if they were signing him to be a run stuffer, then it would be a concern. But they're not signing him to be a run stuffer. Most likely, they're signing him to be a pass rusher. So it's not like, oh, Quentin Jefferson is here. He's a run stuffer. So the signing is not for that. So I'm not necessarily like concerned because that's not what he is. If you feel what I'm saying. Now, if they don't bring in another guy and it's just Quentin Jefferson, Quentin Williams, Solomon Thomas, and Tanzel Smart, yeah, I'm concerned about the run game. But I still think they may sign a Al Woods or whoever maybe who's a good guy against the run. And there could obviously be plenty of reasons. It could be the scheme. Just because of D tackles, like I guess it's obviously the easiest to pin on the defensive tackles. Like, oh, they suck against the run. D tackles might suck, but it could be the scheme. It could be the DNs. It could be the linebackers. It could be the safeties. It could be corners. It could be a lot of things and why they struggle. But with all that being said, do I acknowledge that Quentin Jefferson is not as baseline view is not a good run stuffer? Of course, but he's not the answer in the run game. He's the answer in the pass rush game. He replaces Sheldon Rankins pass rush. Harold, I think the D-line rotations were addressed somewhat last year. Sal and Albrecht got better at getting players on the field when needed. Jefferson, Woods, and whoever else should be fine. Yeah, it's not something I necessarily pay attention to later in the season, like the rotations. I think at the point of like the Jaguars, Lions, Dolphins game and stuff like that, maybe I got a little bit numb to not notice that. Maybe they did. I'd look into that a little bit. But if they plan on doing the rotation like they did early, where, hey, you're just rotating the rotate, and Quentin Jefferson here, throw you in on 3rd and 1, then we're screwed. So they have to really be more specific on when they sub guys in, because part of the frustrating thing was it not necessarily like, oh, well, you want Quentin Williams and Shepard together in the run game, and they never were because it was full rotations like hockey. I'm not saying that, but there was times where it would be 3rd and 1 in the red zone, and Quentin Williams and Sheldon Rankins would come out for Solomon Thomas and Nathan Shepard. So it's like, what are we doing here with the rotation? So the rotation has to be more solid. Maybe it was for the end of the year, and if it was, okay, it needs to continue. So if this Boyle guy beats out Zach for the number 2 spot, do we trade Zach? I don't think they trade him just because he's at his lowest point right now that he's ever going to be in terms of draft compensation. Now, maybe if he comes in for a game or a preseason game next year and he really lights it up, you can trade him. But what's the value? What are you getting for Zach Wilson right now? Now, I know Trader Joe has gotten, a 4th for Herndon, or Herndon in the 6th really for a 4th, right? You got a 6 for Blake Cashman. I get that, but Zach Wilson, realistically, you're not going to expect a lot. So why trade him at his lowest point? Hope he bounces back in some aspect and get some positive news, and he can get traded for a little more. And then on top of that, who wants him? Like at this point, he makes $9-10 million-ish a year for the next 2 years with his contract. Who's gonna want Zach Wilson for $9 million if that's what he makes? I think it's right around there. So, two-way street there. NJZ says, "Can you explain how the salary cap works? I would have thought we couldn't afford all these signings with Rodgers, but it seems like there are a lot of ways around having money." Can I explain the cap? Well, we have money still, and the thing with the cap, you can adjust a lot of money into signing bonuses. So like you could pay. Like, I don't know how exactly I had it. I guess I could explain this. Maybe I'm just like stupid right now. But let's say if I give you a $10 million sign, like let's say you're contracted until 2026, and I convert all of your $10 million into a signing bonus. You get all that $10 million right now, but I can kind of pick when that $10 million hits the cap. So let's say you're under contract until 2026. I want to give you a $10 million signing bonus. I can pay you basically no money, like $0 2023, $0 2024, $0 2025, and then 10 million all gets hit to me in 2026. So there are ways to play around with it with signing bonuses where you give them money or a big chunk of that money in the contract, and you just spread it out in different years. So you can kind of pick what years you pay what money in contracts. It's not like, oh, well, your base is this, that. You have to pay this, that in those years. You can finagle that a lot and really push cap around or payments around, like when it actually hits your books. So I didn't explain that well. I don't think. I'm not a cap guy, but there are ways to do that. Bonuses to reduce money this year, or even up money, this year, wherever it may be. So let's see. Does Zach survive the first half of the season, cut or traded? I think he's gonna be on the Jets this year. 2024, I don't know. Extreme is so much better without Kyle. I don't know who that is. I'm talking about me. Extreme is so much better without Kyle. I don't know if you're talking about Kyle Smith. I don't know what Kyle you're talking about. I don't know. I'm lost in that conversation. But Kev Trotta, are you psyched about this draft pick? Pick uncertainty still has me about the draft. Yeah. It's realistically the Jets are going to have pick 13. They're going to have pick 42 or 43. So they're going to have a first and second. The second round, or sorry, the second half of day 2 is going to be boring. Like unless they plan on trading back into it, we're going to go from pick 42 all the way to pick 96 on day 2 and not have anything to talk about. So like that's the thing. Day 1, I'm usually with my buddy, so maybe I'll stream after the draft. But then on day 2, we're gonna have like the half an hour it is all the way up until the Jets pick, and then the next 2 hours, what is there gonna be to do? Like we're gonna talk about, oh well, this guy got drafted to Seattle. Oh, this guy got drafted to the Rams. Oh, this guy got drafted to Buffalo. Who are they? I don't know. I haven't really watched them yet. So like it's we'll see. June Smith, what's up, Joe? What's good, Joe? What's up, June? How are you doing? Craig Carden clearly has an agenda. I don't think it's an agenda. I think he's a pretty easily targetable media market or like a New York media guy. So who's to say somebody from the Packers camp or whatever didn't give him some information for him to push a little bit and maybe put some pressure on the Jets. Would it really? I don't know. Did that really happen? I don't know. But it's just there's not much going on right now. There's really not. So I'm not looking much into the 49ers thing. It's not happening. So Randy sub, looking forward to it. Appreciate that. Joe Campione. Jets only have 3 returning offensive starters: Garrett Wilson, Tomlinson, and Conklin, who started 9+ games, 8 new starters. New OC system needs a year to gel. Well, that's why you bring in guys like Lazard, right? And you have Rodgers to teach those guys. You have guys like Boyle now to teach those guys. You have and the thing with the system in general, yeah, Joe, like you take time to adjust to new systems. But the Jets are going from a West Coast system to a West Coast system. So it's not a completely new system for them. It's different terminology and some differences in the offense and exactly how they go about stuff. But it's not like learning a whole new language. It's replacing some words for some words, learning how the coach exactly wants to do it. But it's not going to take as long as, okay, they went from a West Coast to an Air Coryell or something like that, or a spread, or, whatever it may be, a power run game type system. They're going from West Coast to West Coast. Now, is that true? 3 offensive starters: Garrett Wilson, Tomlinson. We have AVT. You have Brees, right? Like, does Brees not count because he didn't take the first rep? But like, Brees is a starter from last. Brees is a starter. Conklin, like you said, Tomlinson. I guess Dwayne Brown, not really. McGovern, maybe he's back. AVT is in there as well, though. But yeah, no, they need. I think that's why it's important you bring in guys like the Lazard, like Rodgers and stuff. But again, you're not necessarily transitioning from a completely different system to different system. So Matt says Rodgers has no idea how much more popular he'll be in New York City. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like in general, I think people kind of overrate the whole New York media market thing. Now is the media market in New York a lot different than I think Green Bay is probably the largest example of you can go like Green Bay or Buffalo is probably like the largest culture shock you can go from, or like the less they're not less popular teams, but like less dense areas in terms of people there. Like you're not going to walk around Green Bay and a bunch of people are going to be swarming you and stuff. Whereas if he's to walk into a pizza place in New Jersey or New York, he's going to get swarmed. So he's going to notice the attention, I think, in his day-to-day life a little bit more, how much people surround him and how much people are trying to take photos of him and stuff like that. But in terms of the internet and all that stuff and Good Morning Football, I think the attention's pretty similar. It's just the day-to-day about your life and driving in traffic and people noticing that stuff. So it might be a little bit overrated. Joe's got a mugshot of Carden. It's out there. It is out there. Which I don't know exactly. What did he get arrested for? So it's somewhat gambling, right? But like, why? I don't know the exact reason what he did. I don't know why my nose is so itchy. I'm sorry. What are the chances of the Jets trading up or down in the draft? That's hard to say, right, Eagle? Because it depends. Like people talk about pick 13. Oh well, if tackle 1, 2, 3 aren't there, we'll just trade down and get thrown right at 24. Okay, well, who's saying anybody wants to trade up? Like, what if Levis, Richardson, all those guys are gone by pick 13? And why is a team trading up for anything? If the Jets want to trade down, it's probably because there's not a lot of guys who they like on the board. So what's to say any team in the 20s isn't like anybody on the board? So you need two to tango with that. But I could see them trading down. I could also see them trading up. Like let's say the Jets get Ben Jones, right? Let's say they get Ben Jones, they get OBJ, they get a linebacker, they get a safety, whatever. So we're going to the draft, and their only 2 big holes are tackle
and let's say D tackle, right? And at 13, they got lucky. Peter Skronsky fell. Sorry, awesome. He's there at 13. Nab him, and then you're sitting there, and the Jets like tackle or defensive tackle ABC, and they're starting to get up to some defensive tackle hungry teams at pick 35, 36, 37. Who's to say they don't just trade up a couple of spots, grab the D tackle they need, because that's truly like less starter they need. So I could see it in either way. The Jets trading down to accumulate more picks to have more flexibility in the lower rounds, or just to fill some other spots, or because they're kind of pushing for it, do they trade up to aggressively fill starter spots? I could really see either one. It's just about how it falls and kind of what they plug in before. Because again, if they get OBJ and stuff and they get Ben Jones, your only two big needs going to that into the draft at that point, minus like safety and stuff, I don't think they're going to draft super early. But the premium positions is the tackle and offensive tackle. So who's to say they don't trade up into 35, 36, whatever it may be. Will the Jets be better off waiting until June 1st to trade for Rodgers cap-wise? I think the Jets take on more money if they trade for Rodgers post-June 1st. Less money if they trade for him pre-June 1st. So it actually hurt them to trade for him after. It might be like another $15 million or whatever it is. Now, with that being said, Rodgers acknowledged that he has to rework his contract prior to coming to any team. So the contract looks like one way right now. It might look a completely different way in a week or two when he's traded to the Jets. So we really don't know. Frank says, Joe, who's your second round pick? I don't know. I think right now, if I was to kind of have it my way, the Jets sign a Ben Jones, they sign Odell. It is what it is with that one. Again, I'm kind of lukewarm on that overall, but you get those two guys. Maybe you get an Al Woods type D tackle. You get an offensive tackle at 13. And in the second round, if that was a scenario, I would take the best center or D tackle at that spot. If you have Ben Jones, you're a little bit concerned about the age. You're a little bit concerned about the concussions. Are one of the tackles there, are the centers there? JMS, is it Avila, Steve Avila, whatever his name is? He there at center in the second round? Okay, well, he might not start, and I get that. But then you have really good center depth. You have really good guard depth if one of those guys were to go down, which is obviously important for an NFL team. And if any teams in the NFL should know that, we should, as fans of the Jets last year, they're down to their 37th offensive tackle. So, that's how I would have it. But I don't know, Frank. I really don't know. I am so based onto this draft. I don't want to give opinions like, I love this guy in the second round, because I could watch him and hate him. And then I regret that I gave that opinion, because then, Joe likes that guy at this pick, and then I really hate him, and then I sound like a douchebag. So Happy Tanking, Joey Breakdowns, the most desirable guest film analysis and Jets. I appreciate that, Happy Tanking. Thank you for checking me out on Buffalo Jet fan and Ryan, which, by the way, I haven't been talking about it a lot, but I know there are the diehard Jets fans out there. And at this time, there's nothing to talk about, like nothing. We're usually like 200 people with like 100 right now, because there's nothing to talk about, really. So I don't want, it's not necessarily the best time to promote it, but myself and Buffalo Jets fan do have a Patreon. It's $5 a month for a podcast a week. Usually the podcasts are about 30 minutes to an hour. I would say recently they're more closer to an hour. So one a week, $5 a month. Support us. If not, it is what it is. I get it. People aren't made of money, and there's plenty of free content out there. So I understand. But if you want more, me and him specifically, $5 a month, Patreon, go find it. I will link it in the description below. I forgot. King Blaze, JETS, Jets. I'm so excited for. Well, it's been boring, but the thing for me behind the scenes is I've got Rodgers done, I've got McColl done, I've got Sauce done, I've got so many reviews done, prep that it should be easier for me down the road. But I know an avalanche is about to fall of one, just having to actually record these guys and put them out to you guys. And then they're going to get 6 or 7 draft picks. I still have to do Quentin Jefferson. They're going to sign Al Woods. They're going to sign OBJ. They're going to sign Ben Jones, and then draft picks. And it's all going to be a freaking mad dash from that point on. But right now it's like kind of calm, because I'm getting a lot of stuff done. And it's nice, but there's about to be a lot of work for me to do. Jordan Victor, I think we got all 3 of the guys you followed before the draft last year. I think we got 3 of the guys you followed before the draft last year. I followed, or that I did reviews on. I did reviews. Yeah, I did reviews on all Sauce, Garrett, and Jermaine Johnson prior to the draft. So yeah, I did reviews on those guys. But in terms of the guys I followed, I'm not sure what you mean by that. But JSN reminds me of more.
I like JSN from watching passively. A little bit different than Moore. Moore's more athletic than JSN, but JSN is a route technician from what I've watched in passing. Elijah Moore was at points, but I think JSN is a more well-rounded route runner than Elijah Moore. And I wouldn't be mad at JSN at 13, but then my big question is tackle. Like in a vacuum, if you're telling me, and there's a bunch of other directions we can take this. Like, would Rodgers obviously wants Odell, they're friends, they want to play together. So would he necessarily love the idea of a rookie receiver? And you have a bunch of younger guys with him. You have McCole Harbin, never played with him. He takes some time to adjust his receivers in general. So McCole Harbin never played with him. JSN, rookie. Garrett Wilson, second-year player. Does he want more of that guy to play with him? I don't know. And in a vacuum, JSN versus Odell, okay, I'll probably take, JSN just because he can be here for longer and he has a pretty high, a ceiling that Odell maybe doesn't have at this point in his career anymore. But with that being said, you're getting JSN, but then you're also not getting one of the tackles. Like, I'd rather have OBJ and Paris Johnson than JSN and whatever tackles going to fall into the second round. So I'd rather just plug as many holes as you can before the draft. And it seems like you could fill receiver with OBJ, where at least that's something, where with tackle, I don't really see there being much you could fill that hole with right now that you'd be thrilled with. Maybe minus Fleming, which you'd be pretty happy with, but I'm not ecstatic about that. And with that all being said, I'm not necessarily ecstatic with OBJ filling the starting receiver role either. So you can argue that. Jess mess. What's up? I explained that really well. I don't know if I did, to be honest. And I didn't snort any coke. I'm just I don't know if it's the allergies or the weather with my dog. It just hit 78 here today, Jersey. So it's gonna get down to 30 at nighttime and stuff, and it just fucks with me. So, but yeah, NJZ, it's all about bonuses, and teams can pretty much pick when your hit is going to come. So. The Boyle to Mims connection is going to win. Eagle Fang, ignoring the media madness and massive panic from Jets YouTubers, I think the Jets will do better than 7-10 and end the play. Okay. I really haven't seen much media madness and massive panic from Jets YouTubers. I haven't been on all of their shows, and I haven't watched all their shows in recent days or weeks, but I know Buffalo wasn't panicking. I know Ryan wasn't panicking. I know Matt wasn't panicking. So I don't know who's panicking. The Jets are going to get Rodgers. It's just about when. I think most seem to think it's going to happen pre-draft or prior to the draft, and I agree. So Simple Eats says, I don't really see us drafting a quarterback this year. Now we have 5 on the roster, and sure, only 3 would be on the 53-man roster, but I think there could be a real player in another position there. Free hippie. Well, yeah. Which round are you talking about? Obviously, Simple Eats. I don't necessarily know what round you're talking about. And we'd have 5 on the roster. We have Rodgers, Wilson, Boyle. So if we draft another one, that's 4. We don't have Mike White and Strevler. Is he still? They signed to a future contract, right? So technically, I guess it would be 5. They're not drafting another one though. It wouldn't make much sense for the Jets to draft a quarterback. So then you have Zach Wilson, who is learning. Then you have another guy who's learning, and you don't really feel much confidence in either one of those stepping into the game. So you're kind of wasting a roster spot, and you're not going to carry 3. They're not going to carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster with 2 of them being developmental guys. Like if you're carrying 3, one of those guys need to be stepping in ready to play. And maybe the Jets make the argument for Tim Boyle being ready to do that, but I don't know. I wouldn't, but they're not going to draft the guy. Nick Nova, does Buffalo Jets fan live in Buffalo? Yes, he does. At least to my understanding. Maybe I heard wrong, but you think Laken Tomlinson could play significantly better? It would be hard for him to be significantly worse than last year, right? Like when he signed, I was definitely one of the ones who maybe again I should have followed my gut and really said to you guys, listen, I don't think he's gonna be very good at all. I said I don't think he's gonna be as good as you think he is, which was me trying to lessen the blow a little bit. But based on what I watched of him in 2021 with the Niners, I thought he was more of like an average to maybe slightly above average guard. And I think I tried to be more positive in that instance, and it hurt me a little bit. Not like hurt me, but I should have just been honest. I'm always honest with you guys, and I tried to be. It's just I try to be a little bit more nice to some of these guys. Nonetheless, I don't know where I'm going. Tomlinson's film wasn't good in 2021. I expected him not to be not as good as some fans thought he was in 22. But I also, with that being said, didn't expect him to be dreadful. So he went from being plus starter, average-ish level player with the Niners to
miserable, not even a starting level player with the Jets for the most part. Maybe he balanced out towards the end of the year, but still pretty dreadful. What do I expect of him this year? I expect him to be more towards average. I just, when you have a player who's about average to plus average, and then he has a really, really down year, but most of his years are about average, I think you can typically bank on that player bouncing back to their mean. With that being said, do I ever think he's going to be worth the contract the Jets gave him? No, I don't. But is average significantly better than terrible? Yeah, so hard to answer. I'm not going to say significantly better, but better. Right? Like I know. I'm not trying to do like word gymnastics there, but significantly better almost indicates to me that he's going to be like a plus starter. I think if I could sign the dotted line right now for Laken Tomlinson to be an average left guard in 2023, I'm signing the dotted line. Now, is that ever going to be a win for the contract he received? No. You're paying $17 million a year for average. That's like the highest guard contract in the NFL. It's never going to be good. The problem is the Jets already renegotiated or restructured his contract a little bit, so I believe they can't get out of it next year. Now they have to wait 2 years. So we have to hope he's at least average, because last year was dreadful. If you pay a lot of money to an offensive lineman who's going to be dreadful, obviously not the best roster construction there, right? Like we want the players to be signed for a lot of money to be good, right? So anyway, Bully, appreciate the $5 super chat. What's up, Joe? Thoughts on Quentin Jefferson? I'd still like us to sign another D tackle as well as draft one, but signing him as a start. Yeah, I feel the same way. You need to. I'm completely with you. Like I'm fine with signing a guy, Al Woods, Sean Robinson, whoever it is, but that's not going to prohibit me from drafting a guy. If there's a guy they really like in the 4th round, and let's say even the 2nd round, if they fill a bunch of these spots, again, if they get Ben Jones, if they get Odell, who's to say they can't draft a D tackle in round 2, and then cut Solomon Thomas, and then you have Al Woods, Quentin Jefferson, Quentin Williams, and a 2nd round guy, and you let them develop a little bit. Like that's completely an answer. Or more realistically, is it a guy in the 4th or 5th round? Okay, that's fine, but it's not going to preclude me from drafting a guy in the draft. And again, Quentin's a start. Like he's like one half of what we need. Like we still need the other half. Again, we have the pass rushing aspect that replaces Sheldon Rankins. Now we need the run stuff aspect that can replace Sheldon Rankins. And Sheldon Rankins was never necessarily strong against the run. But so I think replacing him with a Jefferson and with a Woods, maybe you upgrade your interior defensive line group a little bit. But do we sign an Al Woods? Do we sign an Sean Robinson? In a perfect world, I would just like Sheldon Rankins back and then sign a Jefferson or Al Woods to be their backup. But that's not the world we live in anymore. They missed out on Rankins. I don't know if they offered him a contract, but he's not back. Obviously, Cox signed elsewhere. Obviously, Campbell signed elsewhere. So signing a Quentin Jefferson, a mid-level guy for pass rushing is fine. Signing another guy to run stuff would be another good idea. And then drafting a guy is in the realm of possibility. None of these guys are going to be stalwarts, and the Jets clearly wanted to invest big capital into Cox or Campbell. So is just signing Quentin Jefferson going to be enough? I don't think so. I think the Jets, just based on the breadcrumbs, want to invest more than just Quentin Jefferson into the defensive tackle position alongside Quentin Williams and as backups. Evident by both of those attempted signings and evident by what they've done in recent years with the defensive line in San Francisco, et cetera. So like they put a lot of value into this defensive line. So is this it? There's no way. There's no way. I see at least an Al Woods, Sean Robinson plus a draft pick, or at least a higher draft pick into this position. I'm hoping by the time I get off, they sign Al Woods, and then boom, you have a pretty solid rotation. I would like to see a guy in the 4th round then replace Solomon Thomas as that 4th-string D tackle, but we'll see. I'm starting to have doubt that we actually let Nick. Don't. I know it's the time thing. It's what the Packers want to happen. You're giving it to the Packers, Nick Nova. They're going to give in, and I think they're going to give in within the next 3 weeks. And then round simple eats. You're talking about the quarterback position being in rounds. Yeah, no, you're still developing Zach. You still have Rodgers. At a certain point, you want a solid backup who can come in and play. That would just be a poor allocation of resources. One in the quarterback group, like you want, if you have 3, you want the starter, you want a guy who can play, and you want the developmental guy. You don't want the starter, 2 developmental guys. And at that point, you're investing into the quarterback room too much when you have some other spots you need to fill. And I'm not saying that the 4th round safety the fourth round rookie safety is going to make a difference in Jets winning a Super Bowl or not, but I know that fourth round safety is going to make more of an impact than some random fifth round quarterback who's ever going to see the field. And carrying 3 quarterbacks in general is usually not a good it's not good roster maneuvering because that third guy's never really going to play. Now if they carry 3 because the third one's Zach Wilson and the second one's Teddy Bridgewater or Tim Boyle, okay, I understand. Again, Tim Boyle is not my preferred backup option, and hopefully it's not the Jets' preferred backup option. At this point, the inklings are that it is, because do you bring in a Tim Boyle and then a Teddy Bridgewater, and then you have Tim Boyle, Teddy Bridgewater, and Zach Wilson all competing for backup spots? Why not just bring in Teddy Bridgewater now? So I feel like if I had to bet, Boyle is their answer, which to me is not ideal, but it is what it is. Will the Lamar Jackson contract signing impact Aaron Rodgers' contract redo? No. Dan didn't have my notification on. That is unfortunate, Solzy, but you could always rewind. That's the benefit of YouTube. It's not like 1995 anymore. You have a TV guide, and if you miss the 7 o'clock show, you miss the 7 o'clock show. Like, you can always rewind. So I appreciate you wanting to be here live. And I would have appreciated you here the whole time, but it is what it is, Solzy. Primo, 1973. Yo, I swear you favor Matt Damon. You favor Matt Damon. Okay. Are the Jets still meeting with Woods? From what I've heard, and this is from Connor Hughes, they are, because somebody asked them, like, hey, does this Quentin Jefferson signing, basically like leave them out of the Woods running? He said no. So apparently they're still visiting with Woods, and I would love that. Again, would I rather have a Arik Armstead at D tackle alongside Quentin Williams, or a Fletcher Cox, or a Campbell? Sure, I would. I'm not preferring the 2 latter to the first there, but and signing some guys who are decent level players is fine. You don't need studs every spot. So maybe this now allows the Jets to spend a little bit more at linebacker or safety or tackle or whatever it may be. So they're meeting with Woods, and I hope they sign him. Simply, it's a difference in the top 3 tackles and the next best few guys really that huge. Sorry if you already. Yeah. So again, transparency. I'm not super deep into the draft. To me, based on what I've been seeing and what I've been hearing, it's really top 4. Like I think people talk about the top 3, and I think people would argue DeJuan Jones in this group too. So maybe it's a top 5, but I think it's really 4 from what I've been hearing, like realistic options at 13. And it's Kronskich, Jones, it's Johnson, and it's Darnell Wright. So I think there's 4 guys really who are options at that spot. Now, how big is the drop off between those guys and DeJuan Jones or whoever the tackles in the second round? I'm not so sure. I could say in general, looking into drafting tackles into passes the first round, whether it be second, third, fourth round, I think tackle is either 1 or 2 in the NFL in terms of like hardest positions to draft outside of the first round and actually be successful. So typically in the NFL, to get a successful tackle, you're going to have to draft them in the first round as compared to any other position. You could find, linebackers, guards, centers, safeties, receivers more in later rounds than you can at tackle. So if you're going to draft a guy, if you're going to draft a tackle and you want to make an impact, you're going to have to draft him in round 1. At least that's what NFL history says. Now, is that always the case? No, not necessarily. Obviously, there's some tackles outside the first round that are good, but percentage chance, it's one of the hardest positions to draft in the NFL outside the second round. So if you like a guy at 13, if you have a grouping there, grab one of those guys and don't rely on your guy in the second round. Now, obviously, depending on what happens with the receiver, etc., that's a bridge we'll cross in about 3 weeks, which I think I'm going to come on after. I think I'm actually going to have a buddy who has to crash in my guest room that night, but he's going to have to go to bed, and I'm going to have to come up here and stream with you guys. I'm probably pretty banged up. Those are always fun. After the first round, it's always fun. I just don't know if you guys want me to do a second round and the second day. Because I know I'm going on Jets Talk 24/7 either. I don't know if it's day 1, 2, or 3. But you guys let me know. Got to figure it out. So, okay, let's skip that one. Solzy, Joe, my opinion is that we should prioritize free safety over linebacker based on the construction of the team, and think we can cover up a linebacker with the rest of the front 7 versus bad. Yeah. I'm not going to say I necessarily agree that they can, like, I don't know how much I want to go through this like with a fine-tooth comb, Solzy, but in general, do I agree that bringing in a starting free safety, then bringing in
a third linebacker is going to make a bigger impact? Yeah, because nickel is the new base in the NFL anyways nowadays. So you're going to play Michael Carter more than you're going to play Quan Alexander or whoever you're going to bring in that third linebacker anyway. So bringing a safety would make the bigger impact over linebacker. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but yeah, the free safety is going to see a lot more playing time than linebacker. Quan saw 40% of the reps last year, 40, 45, 60, whatever it is, somewhere in that range. Let's just say 50% for the time being, where the free safety is going to see 100% of the reps. So yeah, free safety is more important. I'd rather bring in both because realistically, Taylor Rapp just signed for 1.77. You see these linebackers, Eric Kendricks, $7.5 million, Bobby Wagner, $8-9 million. So in reality, we overpaid Quincy. That's a story for a different day. But if Eric Kendricks is signing for $7.5 million, you can get Quan for $2 or $3 million. So I think you get Quan for $2-3 million, and then you get McLeod or John Johnson for $2 or $3 million, and you cut Whitehead and you just signed 2 starters with that price, and upgraded in both positions. So I don't know. Get Brockers for cheap. I know Brockers was good with the Rams. I from what I've heard and seen, he's really struggled in recent years with the Detroit Lions. I don't think he's much of a run stuffer. So I'd rather have and I could be completely wrong, Jennifer, but to me, I'd rather have a Woods, a Alshon Robinson, a Shelby Harris over Brockers. I haven't really heard Brockers mentioned recently in terms of him actually playing at a good level. So could be wrong though. Could be wrong. I could watch him and completely disagree with what I just said in the after watching. So Rollo Perry, okay, you guys are weird. I think this is about propaganda. I don't know. John Hepburn? Is it Hepburn? Am I saying that right? No. Hello, John. I wonder if a Buckner trade could happen mid-draft. So that's something I've mentioned, Swolzy, and you'd have to completely pivot from draft, sign this mid-level D tackle, sign this mid-level safety, sign this mid-level receiver. At that point, you can't do much more. But if the Jets were going after Cox, and if they're going after guys like Campbell, if they were going after Orlando Brown, Orlando Brown's going to cost them $16-17 million. Buckner, I think if they trade for him, is going to cost them $16-17 million. So could they figure out a way to make it work with Buckner? Hell, if they could, do it. Do I think it's realistic that they can make the rest of the roster work? Probably not. So would it be smart to invest that much into the defensive line group and then still have massive holes at safety and receiver and center? It's probably not the best roster construction. Now, if they can make it work and they're going, all in for this year, then fine, do it. But how realistic is that? I'm not sure. But can you imagine Quinn Williams and Buckner? At that point, you're getting rid of Lawson, obviously. So it would be Q, Buckner, JFM, and I guess in a rush situation, next best guy is Huff, JJ Clemens. So yeah, that'd be fucking awesome. So, John, what do you think about using our fullback early on in the season? So I'll hit this pretty quick. So I think I'm a couple minutes behind the chat. Might jump off a minute or two early. The Titans, watching their run game scheme and even just their passing scheme in general, John, they do use a lot of tight ends. I work on specific notes, but they were using fullbacks 21, 22 personnel in combination. Their 21 and their 22 personnel usage almost equaled up to what they used or the percentage usage of 11 personnel. And I'm not sure if that continued throughout the full season, but through the first 2 or 3 games, that was the case where they were running sets with a fullback just as much as they were running 11 personnel. So they were, with that being said, without using all these words, they used the fullback a lot with Tennessee. So it was a big part of their system, both in the run and in the pass game. So the Jets, not just early, are going to use a fullback, in my opinion, unless they pivot away from what they did in Tennessee. They're going to be a fullback usage team. The fullback position in today's NFL has turned into do you have one or do you not? And then obviously if you do have it, then there's subsections of, okay, well, how much do you actually use them? With Tennessee, it was a lot. Now, with that being said, watching Tennessee, the receivers running out there were Treylon Burks, Robert Woods, whoever else last year. Whereas with the Jets this year, they're going to have, Conklin, they're going to have Lazard, OBJ, or Corey Davis, or Garrett Wilson, etc. So the talent on their receiving core might lend them to use 11 personnel more than they did with the Titans. But with that being said, I don't see it being completely phased out from the offense just because of how much the Titans did it last year. I'm not sure if that was just a bowl of mashed up word soup for you, John, but I'm just trying to say the Titans use it a lot. So we'll be using a fullback all year. Let's see. Um, I don't know. I'm getting told to block Ronald Perry, but I've never had a problem with Ronald Perry. I think Ronald Perry's been completely fine when I've been here. I've been calling you guys weird. If he's calling me weird, maybe I block him. But I don't think me and Ronald Perry have any beef that I know of. I think we're cool. So Hader Ali says, Joe Blewett, what's up, brother? I understand we use a 5 DB, 3 safety at about 60s. 3 safety. I don't know where you're getting that number from, Ali. You could be completely right. I could be completely wrong, but I'm very, very positive we don't run 3 safeties on 60-70% of our reps. Now we're talking about maybe Michael Carter. I think you could transition this into, okay, we run nickel with 3 corners, and Michael Carter being one of those guys, 60 to 70% of the reps. But there's no way they run 3 safeties 60% of the reps. So nonetheless, I'll kind of switch those words up there for you. Do you see bigger roles for Sherwood, Hamza, Nasruddin when we do 3 linebacker sets? Yeah, as of now, and yes, the because of 11 personnel usage in the NFL, obviously nickel is the new base. You're going to run your third corner out there more so than your third linebacker in today's NFL again. But they're going to be sets where you're going against 22, 21, 32, whatever it is personnel, and they're running a little bit heavier where you're going to have to throw a linebacker in there. So as of right now, I would see it being a Sherwood or a Hamza, but I'm hoping they address either safety at free safety, and then one of Whitehead or Clark fills that Sherwood or Hamza role, or really the Quan role from last year. Or in a perfect world, they get rid of Whitehead, they sign a safety. Clark is your strong safety. Whoever, Rodney McLeod is your free safety, and then you bring back Quan for $2-3 million a year. So as of right now, yeah, they're going to see an uppage in playing time, most likely Sherwood, because he's our third linebacker as of right now, if I had to bet. But do I see that being the case in 4 months from now? I don't. So Nick Nova Swolsey's profile pics look like something in an Always Sunny promotion, which, by the way, Swolsey, now I got to find it so I can see Always Sunny. I just saw, I guess so, I don't know. I just watched the first 5 episodes of Always Sunny. I've seen that show in passing, but never actually watched it. And I watched the first 5 episodes the last couple of days. Pretty good. It's pretty good. June Smith, I truly believe that we were holding on to Corey Davis to trade him for a 3rd pick. Either one, they're holding him for the Aaron Rodgers deal, and LaFleur wants him in the deal, which I think is probably the most true statement, or the Jets are waiting, because at the end of the day, let's say you don't trade him to Green Bay, right? And the trade for Rodgers all goes down. Let's say OBJ goes to the Ravens. Okay, that's one of the receiver options. What if they only like JSN at 13 and then JSN's gone? So you don't have OBJ, you don't have JSN, the trade's already completed. Are you rolling with Corey Davis next year? Or are you rolling with a guy that you might get in the 2nd round, a guy you might get in the 4th round? I'm rolling with Corey. Now, maybe if you get the 2nd round, there's a guy you love and he's supposed to be a 1st-round pick. Okay, then you get rid of Corey Davis. Fine, I can see that, but that's about the extent of it. So I think if it's not a guy in the 1st round, it's not OBJ, it's Corey Davis is your answer. So I think they're waiting on multiple fronts there. And again, we will see in a couple of weeks. It will reveal itself. Hader Ali, I would be pleasantly surprised if Jody can get us anything more than a 5th or 6th for in 24 for Corey Davis for you. Yeah, I think that's about his worth. Now, are they going to trade him like 1-for-1 for a 5th or a 6th round pick to the Packers? No, not necessarily. But do I think his value is about that in the trade? Yeah, I would say about a 5th or a 6th round pick is what you get for Corey Davis. And again, I think there's a possibility he's actually on the Jets. I would put the possibility at OBJ or the draft pick at higher percentages, but Corey Davis is on a 0% chance. Because again, if you miss out on 13, you miss out on one of those guys. It's Corey's next. So Joe Pekulik, Joby, thoughts on getting a number 2 receiver? Not a big Lazard guy, but he's fine in the slot for Aaron Rodgers. I really like Hopkins. Yeah, this is kind of, and I've answered this question a couple of times in the last couple of days, but I like Lazard. Do I like Lazard as your legit number 2? Like, is Lazard a good number 2 option in offense? No, he's not. Like, being realistic, obviously, you have T. Higgins of the world, you have other guys out there of the world. I think he's a good I think he's an okay starting level receiver. And a starting level receiver to me means a top 3 receiver, because your number 3 is a starter in today's NFL, which I feel like I've said a couple of times. So I'm okay with him being in the 3-man rotation, but as a true number 2 receiver in your offense, I don't think it's necessarily enough for an offense, or at least for a good offense. You said not a big Lazard guy, but he's fine with in the slot for Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, well, he's more like 50-50 outside and slot. If he's outside, you want him running vertical, fades, things like that, just straight 9 balls. If he's going to be in the slot, you want him running crossers, digs, things like that. But he's more 50-50 in terms of inside and outside. And in terms of like a number 3 or number 2 guy, they need to add somebody else. Again, whether it be a JSN, whether it be in your world, big dicking it with Hopkins, they need to add something. Now, the thing with Hopkins is, again, in a vacuum, would you like Hopkins more than OBJ? Yeah, sure. Would you like Hopkins more than JSN? Yeah, sure. The problem is resource allocation, right? So if you only have a couple of $1 million, let's say, whatever it is after the Jets restructure, $20-30 million, whatever it's going to be to spend, if they obviously want to go balls to the wall and spend as much as they can, is it smart to throw $18-19 million at Hopkins when you could save some of that money and sign a linebacker? So like let's say OBJ plus the incentives is going to cost you, let's just be safe and say $9 million, $10 million. Let's just say 10. That's on the higher end. And Hopkins, who people are saying he's going to get traded, but I believe he wants to rework his contract to get more money. So he's making about $15-16 million right now. Let's just say it's 20, right? Let's say it's $20 million a year that he wants, where OBJ and the high sides make $10 million. So would you rather have OBJ, Ben Jones, and a starting safety, or Hopkins? You know what I'm saying? So to me, I'd rather fill more spots than just the receiver. Whereas, obviously I'm acknowledging that Hopkins would be the better fit for the offense, and he's more reliable than OBJ, but I'd rather fill multiple other starting spots other than bringing Hopkins. I just don't think the Jets have enough other holes filled up right now to be able to justify Hopkins. Now, if it was Zach Wilson on his rookie contract, we're having a different conversation. Unfortunately, we are not in that. We don't live in that world. So, in a vacuum, Hopkins, but I just don't see it happening. Just because, again, no safety, no third linebacker. They're still missing a quasi starting defensive tackle. Quentin Jefferson's like a half a starter to me. He's not a backup. He's not a full starter. He's half a starter. So get another half starter, the run game starter. Mia Troll, ain't that a bitch? All right. Gangrene 44. Hey Joe, what's up, Gangrene? Quick thoughts on Boyle and Jefferson. Finnegan is here late. Boyle, I'm underwhelmed for the most part. If he has to come in and play, I'm underwhelmed for the sake of, he knows the offense, and we're about to enter OTAs, or voluntary OTAs, I believe, in a couple of weeks, and he can get guys lined up. He can call the offense. Okay, I get it there. But if he's going to legitimate play for you, not the highest. Jefferson, I like it. It's a body. He's a good pass rusher as an interior defensive lineman. He struggles, at least from what I know right now, in the run game. So he's, again, like a half a starter. We got our pass rusher. We need another run stuffer, whether that be Al Woods, Alshon Robinson, whoever it's going to be. But I like it. It's not enough right now. Our defensive tackle room right now is not set. You need at least another guy in there, and it's still not like stacked. But Joe Darnell Wright and Mozzie Smith give our team core strength that is much needed. You're telling me right now, like, hey, I think Mozzie Smith is the center, right? If you're telling me right now, hey, Darnell Wright and Mozzie Smith are the first and second round picks, obviously I'm assuming that D tackles filled and receivers filled, but I don't think it's a bad first and second round. I'm completely fine with addressing the offense. And while we can argue that, linebacker safety might be more of needs 1-for-1 than some offensive positions, I'm going to always lean towards offense because you want to maximize Rodgers. And I know the defense helps the quarterback as well, but obviously 1-for-1, a tackle or a receiver is going to help Aaron Rodgers be more successful than a free safety will. Again, 1-for-1. Joe Pekulik agreed. There's a hole that needs to be addressed. Def, those 3 were Hopkins. I had to like for the great Joe B. I appreciate that. I'm going to get out of here 15-16 minutes early. Give me another couple of minutes to get ready before I have to go to work. But I appreciate all you guys. Next show will be Wednesday at 6 with Kyle Smith and I. Again, expect plenty of reviews. Follow me on Twitter, JorB31, Just X Factor. Throw likes, subscriptions, all that stuff. We hit a little bit of a wall in terms of growing. We've been floating around about 8,000 right now for quite a bit. So I like to push towards a 10. And I know there's some things that I'm missing from the channel. Talked to Ryan about it last night. I'm gonna start doing more video edits. Like I know people appreciate like the 2-hour stuff, but like realistically, people's attention span isn't that long. So I would like to eventually do more like short clips, like a 10-minute video, 3 major strengths, show a strength, a film example of a strength, show a film example of a weakness, and then kind of like move on from the player to do like 3 strengths, 3 weaknesses, like little quick edit type stuff. Because I know people's attention spans are shorter. So I want to start doing that. I want to start doing some other things, start adding some emojis in here like Ryan does, and some name highlights and all this different stuff and things that you guys can do that other people can't do who don't pay, and all that. And then past that, just subscribe to the Patreon with me and Buffalo Jets fan. You get extra hour of podcasting every week from both of us. So I'd appreciate that. With that all being said, I will see you guys in a couple of days. Don't panic. Aaron Rodgers will be here soon enough, and we're going to start signing some fun free agents we have to break down in the next couple of weeks. So again, appreciate you guys.